Hello, how are you? Happy Tuesday. Look at me, right on time. Hey, Emmy, how are you? Hugh, Janus. You know how much I love saying your name. Hey, crazy nurse. How y'all doing? Happy Tuesday. My goodness. I figured, you know what? Full disclosure, I because I decided to do this morning rather than wait until the end of the day, because I'm useless at the end of the day, typically, I thought, well, I'm just going to go in there and we're going to do this thing. I did not go back and look up all the finer points, but don't you worry. I've got it. Oh boy. I may not have the absolute minutia of the whole thing. And frankly, I'm quite baffled still at the end. I was like, WTF. Oh my goodness. I freaking love this name. Helen Highwater. Listen, I'm like tech stupid. Soundboard? No, I have no soundboard. Hell, I don't even know how to edit a video. Okay, when I tell you that I am not tech savvy, of course, unlike Betty, I do know how to operate both an Android and an Apple. I have to say, I prefer Apple. And Betty, honey, in case you're listening, and something tells me you do listen, because you got rid of those damn Pilot gas station sunglasses and got yourself a pair of what I'm assuming are knockoff hater blockers. Gucci. Yes. But Betty, listen, honey, allow me please to give you this little tip. I mean, I know you know more than everybody, but in this instance, I mean, you've made your own personal grift stream based on your lack of understanding of how Apple products work. So let me just say this, and I'm not a programmer, but Betty, like Savage says, lean in, Shug. It's by design. Apple is what they kind of refer to as a walled garden. You don't get viruses from Apple products, at least not that I've heard of. And Betty, that's why they don't play well with Android. And like I said, I've used both for years. And first I had an iPhone, then I went to an Android, then I went back to the iPhone. So there you go, Bets. Just a little FYI. I mean, that might be, I don't know, that might be only like the second thing in the world that you don't know about. So there you go. Thought I'd help you out, being all about women's empowerment and whatnot. Hello, Amethyst Moon. How are you? Hey, Deets on the street. How you doing? But Helen Highwater, just picture that as, I use that for any number of things. Typically, I try and use it for what it's actually, made for. Namaste. I call it like a cleanse. You know how Betty was standing on the side of that bridge reflecting, and she said something about getting all something inside, and I said, oh girl, that's probably just the colonic you probably stop and had on your way to go vacation with another man and his wife. So yeah, typically I use as my when we need to cleanse our mind, when we've, spent in too much time around dumb and mean people. So I love your name. It's so very clever. You are going in my personal Hall of Fame along with Jane's Blonde 007. And there's another one that I'm not remembering at the moment that I absolutely love. It's a mood. Good morning. You ready, girl? Hi, Justin. How you doing? Thought there was somebody else I wanted to say hello to. Who's? Oh, yes. Deets, have you not watched Stella? Hello, how are you? For anybody who maybe didn't watch this in full, we're just going to start talking about it. Hi, Fit and Curdy. We're going to start talking about it. I have got my alarm set on my phone for 1:30, and at 1:30, I have got to wrap it up and be boogieing on out the door to my appointment. So we'll just kind of see. Oh, Deets, did you like it? Can I just say this to start off? I fucking hate all these people. My God. I wanted to punch him in his face. Pretty much, I wanted to do a Betty on him. Like, I wanted to lay hands on that man. So, shall we start at the beginning, kids? And we'll just see how it goes. Maybe I should put the link out, and anybody who wants to come up and give their thoughts, we could do that too. But I figured, Helen, who's a drama queen? Let me guess. I mean, there's only a few boys that play in this neighborhood. And yes, boys, definitely some of them. Oh, Deets, well, I'm glad you, isn't it nice when you get to disconnect from YouTube? Hey, Nanya, how you doing? It's, oh God, you know that old commercial, milk, it does a body good. YouTube, unplugging for at least 2 days in a row also does a body good. And, I always say one of the many conundrums of this place, how two polar opposite things can actually exist at the same time, is when you do take a few days away from YouTube, on one hand, it is like dog years. So much can happen in the span of, let's say, 48 hours. But also, at the same time, when you come back, everything will also be exactly as it was when you left it. We just move the, we keep the same storylines pretty much going all the time. We just interchange the players around the board. Does that make sense? Hey, Zed, how you doing? Fit and curvy, absolutely. 24 hours on here. Like I said, it's like dog years. What do they say? 7 to 1. I would say that's a decent comparison on here. Okay, so y'all, I wish there was a way. Emmy, Days of Our Lives. It's interesting you say that because one time I titled a live stream, Days of Our Knives, and usually it's in somebody's back because that's what this place reminds me of. So I wish there was a way that we could watch clips from this and then I could just, go off. But I don't think there is without getting struck. But if anybody knows of a safe way to do it, I'd certainly be open. Okay, so but unless that happens, let's start at the beginning. Okay, so we are in Indiana, And God, what year was this? Does anybody know off the top of their head? See, when I said that I didn't do some of the backstory before coming in there, because I said the other day that we were going to do this today, and I hate to say I'm going to do something and then not do it. So, okay, Hugh, you know what? We'll go with 2008-ish, all right? All right, so we're in Indiana, and episode 1 opens up with Michael Bennett wearing what is probably one of the most atrocious ties that ever has been manufactured. My God, what the hell was that about? Listen, I knew this guy. I knew. Well, I was going to say, I knew right off the bat I was going to just despise him. But I didn't, okay? That didn't set in until later. But the tie and the color combination. Now y'all might laugh and say that's just because I'm into the fashion end of things, which I am. But I always say, if you want to be taken seriously, look serious. Can you imagine? You have a documentary being made about you. Now, I thought it was an HBO production, but when I talked about this in the beginning, I didn't know that HBO and I think it's Discovery Plus merged, and it's now one big app called Max. So I don't know who the original production company was, but we'll just go with HBO. Oh, Helen, yes. Oh my God. It had multiple problems. Okay. First problem, it's not from the last 2 decades as far as being on point style wise. I mean, I don't think I've seen a tie that wide outside of Barnum and Bailey and the circus clowns, the ties they wear. But it wasn't just that. Okay, that's bad enough that he's wearing this super wide, way out of fashion tie with some atrocious pattern. And listen, I'm all about pattern. I freaking love pattern. And there have been times when I have literally begged my husband to wear some funky tie that I've picked up while I was out in my travels. Because we have something to go to, and my husband will wear color, that's not a problem. He'll wear pink, he'll wear purple, minimal design. And come on, if I picked it out, I promise you, it wasn't anything like Michael's tie. So all that is to say, I'm not opposed to a man wearing print on a tie. Not at all. In fact, I love it. But I would like it to be from at least the last 2 decades as far as being in fashion. So not only do we have this very wide tie with this, oh God, large scale graphic print, he is wearing it with an ox blood red shirt. And the tie was green and white. It did have a little bit of that Oxford color in it. So, okay. But right off the bat, I'm like, okay, well, he's a lot. You can just tell. I knew right away that, oh my God, all you had to do is look at him. And then let's we also have to take into consideration that he's got eyes the size of this duck around his eyeballs. He's got these buggy eyeballs that just when you take it all in together at the same time, it's a little off-putting. I was like, Ooh, hi, Michael. Boy, Michael, my goodness, Michael. That ensemble is certainly a deliberate choice. Okay. And then we have his speaking voice. Hey, SoFlo, how you doing? Oh, Helen. I'm looking at your comment and I'm like, what's a do canoe? What's a dough canoe? Yes, douche canoe. Oh, God. But I have to say, talk about the spectrum of emotions from moment one when he appears on screen like this, wearing that circus tie and that, woo, that the color. Listen, I could have even gotten, I would have been okay with the tie. When I say okay, I mean okay-ish. With the tie, had he worn, I don't know, a white shirt or maybe a light pastel. No, that, so he also has, let's just say, a certain cadence and tone to his voice. And my goodness, the spectrum of emotions I felt about old Michael, from opening scene to closing scene, we went from, oh my goodness, he's interesting, to I hate this bastard's guts and I would like to punch him in his fat face, or do a Betty. Oh, and of course he drove a yellow fucking Corvette. The only thing that could have made him more douchey was if it was a Mustang. I did say that anyone in here who, oh, Zen, well, girl, if you want to watch this series, you may not, this may not be, you're going to learn some things that you might want to find out for yourself. That's all I'm saying. I don't, spoiler alert. Is that what we call it? Spoiler alert. I don't want to spoil this for anybody. I'm just trying to set the stage, paint a picture of old Michael here. Oh God, Helen, yes, the Lambo. The Lambo from Back to the Future, I think it was. What did the Back to the Future guy drive? Was it a Ferrari or a Lambo? Or it was a DeLorean. That's right. Never mind. Hell, I remember. Listen, I'm from that time. I remember when John DeLorean got caught in a hotel room undercover doing blow with a hooker, and being filmed by the FBI. So shame on me for not knowing that. That's my time. That was the 80s. Yeah, I would have been in high school at some point. Okay, so we've got Michael, and to go along with all the visual, the minute he talks, it's like my very first thought, and I swear to God, this is no lie. My very first thought was, gosh, I wonder if his wife knows that he's got a boyfriend. I wonder if his wife knows he's gay. Come on now. We've all known. And listen, I love gay guys. I would love to have a gay best friend. I've always said that. That is one of the, that's one thing in my life I've never had, except for there was a man who came close. I used to call him my work husband, and he was gay, and I loved him so much. Paul, if you're listening, I miss you. But we didn't, it wasn't a long relationship. I mean, we basically had it annulled because, one of us was only there for a very short period of time. So there you have it. So please don't anyone misunderstand. I love gay guys, and I have no problem with gay women. I do know. I know some gay girls. It's not like, oh, I don't like gay people. No, but come on now. Tell me I'm not the only one whose gaydar immediately went on high alert within 2 minutes of we'll just say taking it all in with Michael. Oh, and he's got I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but he's got a very slight speech impediment. I think maybe it was a lisp. I'm not certain about that, and it's not super apparent. Like, if you only listen to him for a short period of time, you probably wouldn't pick up on it. But I spent more time with Michael than well, I'm not going to say that I wanted to, but Michael's a character. Let's just say that. So we have Michael, and oh my God, I can't believe I forgot to mention Michael. My God, I thought I just read you for filth, and drove you on the back of my bumper up and down the fashionable streets. Well, apparently Michael's flamboyant taste, we'll just say, which is obviously code for no taste at all. Well, it doesn't stop at his attire. The only thing that could have made Michael's getup worse was if he were sitting in front of a really ugly, God, what in the hell would you call that color? Like sienna? Oh, yeah, sienna. You know, the color in the crayon box that like nobody ever wanted to color with. Because unless you're drawing little adobes, what are you gonna use the sienna color for? No. Yeah, but amped up a little. It was like, whoo, sienna on. It was very bright. Very bright. It's odd because it was a dark color, but it was a bright dark color, if that makes any sense. I know it sounds insane, but yeah, it was a lot. It was the only thing that could have made his outfit worse. So quite naturally, that's where they decided to film him, in front of this very ugly sienna / burnt orange background. And in that opening scene, he says something to the effect of, to the interviewer, "Hey Clancy, how you doing? Had an Italian not come into their lives, how did he put it? I'm still married. I still have more than 37 cents in my bank account," or whatever the hell he said. "I've still got all those, I've still got a Lambo in my driveway. I still got a McMansion." He called that house a McMansion. No, I don't agree with that assessment of his home. Don't get me wrong. It was very nice, and it did look quite large. He said it was 5,000 square feet. I'm from Florida, so we don't have basements, but what we do have is people who live on the water. And I know because my mom and dad used to live on the water. Well, because of hurricanes and flooding and whatnot, if you are right on the water, your house has to be elevated on stilts. Well, people like my mom not everybody cares for the appearance of the house when it's just sitting on stilts. So what a lot of people do is they close it in, and it basically makes it like you can't see. Obviously, you see the house is elevated and you have to climb exterior stairs to get to the front door, but you can't tell that it's stilted otherwise. You don't have all this empty space underneath. And it's basically like a basement, but not underground, if that makes any sense. So the house did look, when he said 5,000 square feet, I was like, Doesn't look like 5,000 square feet. I mean, I figured it was probably 3 maybe, but when I take into account that they, they do, I'm assuming, have a basement in Indiana. It's a mood. I agree. Those people were trash. They would have lost it all regardless of meeting her. And they didn't just meet her. They adopted her. But hold on, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Oh, okay. So by the looks of the chats, though, most of you do not agree either. That did not. I'm sorry. Had I been driving by that house, I would not have turned and looked at my husband. Well, if I'm Betty, I would have been driving and I would have been live chatting and I would have been streaming from the second seat. No, but if I'm just, driving by, and my husband's sitting there or anybody sitting there, I'm not going to look and say, holy shit, did you see that one? Believe it or not, here in Florida, well, at least where I live, like I just said, we have a lot of waterfront properties. There are some amazing, gorgeous homes that you absolutely would say, holy shit, did you see that one? If I'm driving through Michael's neighborhood or his former neighborhood, I'm not turning to look at my passenger and say, oh my God, that's a McMansion. I think Michael is very, I think he's got a very overinflated sense of himself, and probably everything in his life. So yeah, McMansion, not to me, maybe to Michael. Okay, but yeah, no, I didn't get McMansion, but be that as it may. Sorry guys, I'm heating up my coffee. So Michael says everything that he would have still had he not lost it all because of this Natalia. All right, so here's the rest of the family. Michael is married to his wife, Christine. As far as their ages, y'all, I don't know. If I'd have had time, I'd have gone and looked. It really doesn't matter. But they look somewhat close in age. This doesn't look like a May-December situation. So we've got the wife, Christine. They have 3 children who there was Jacob, Ethan, and something tells me Eli might have been the third one because there's always an Eli for some reason. And Michael says, we were this perfect. I just did a Betty. I just made up my own word. Perfect. We were this perfect family. But here we are. We're this amazing family unit of mom and dad and 3 kids. One of whom he says is autistic. Or maybe he said on the spectrum, Asperger's apparently. And upon finding that out, he and his wife were mainly, they had a charitable organization. And the wife, Christine, ran a daycare out of the home for special needs children. And they showed her in the backyard with some of the kids. And of course, she's pushing them on the swing and, oh, kumbaya, everything's wonderful. And there's a short clip during this opening montage, I guess, where the one child of Michael and Christine is a genius. This kid, when he rattled off the number pi, which most of us, if you're like me, all you know is 3.14. Well, apparently pi, there's about 20 more digits after the 4. And they show a clip of, and I think if I'm not mistaken, that was it Ethan or Jacob? Which one was the genius? And when I heard him, it sounded to me like, I don't really know. I don't have much experience with being around. I think I have been around someone who has Asperger's, but not on the regular. What I'm saying is I don't have a big scope of knowledge about that. Okay, it's Jacob. But I think I've said before that I have a family member who teaches she doesn't teach. She's a speech therapist in a suburb of Chicago. Well, she's about an hour outside of Chicago. And she has had many kids with Asperger's that she's worked with over the years. So the little bit I do know about Asperger's, it's been my cousin telling me, about every year when she gets new kids, we always have the phone call where I say, okay, so tell me, do you have any that are really like, because she's got stories, let's just say that. But the little bit I do know is I believe that it's typical of Asperger's that there will be I think like a soul or a very limited focus on certain things. And with this kid, it was math and numbers. They show, one of the quotes is, well, life was so great and we were used to people calling and saying, hey, did you see so-and-so on the front page of the paper, Jacob? Because obviously, I believe he was working on his master's when he was, I believe, in the 8th grade, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously brilliant. Something I found really interesting, and I went back and looked because I watched almost all of it twice because I made my husband watch it. And this is no lie. By episode 4, my husband was like, I fucking hate these people. I can't watch this anymore. I cannot stand them. I'm like, yeah, well, me too. But I kept watching. So some of this I've seen twice. And oh, wow. SoFlo, that's amazing. Math. My cousin told me that typically these kids will have one thing that they are super hyper focused on, and they will know everything there is to know. Like she had a kid who was just dinosaurs and she's in the elementary school. So some of the things that these kids know and can do, I promise you, I'm lucky I can balance a checkbook. If it goes past 10, I need the calculator. So I think people with Asperger's are probably some of the smartest people out there. And his kid was definitely a genius. But did anybody else wonder why, through this whole thing, did anybody ever hear Michael talk about his career? Because I did not. And I know that he was not working with her, because towards the end, he makes a comment about his HR department and things that employees were telling HR. So I just thought it was interesting I never heard. And listen, Michael clearly he's right on out there on Front Street. He wants everybody to know, he's got his McMansion, he's got his Lambo from 30 years ago. You get the picture. So I thought it was very interesting. If I had to guess, computer programming or something like that would be my guess. My guess would be he probably worked in some type of tech. I myself have had a friend of decades who is a programmer. She writes code, and she has always said she is kind of like a unicorn in that sector because it's almost exclusively men. And she's told me, I mean, I've met some of her people she's worked with over the years. Yeah. To say they're difficult to talk to is an understatement. So, well, my own, I have a family member who he doesn't do code, but he was in finance, and he has a real thing with numbers too. Like I keep meaning to get a picture of it. I need to have my mom send it to me. One day, just for fun, he was visiting, and I don't know, I guess he was waiting for my parents to get up, and he just started jotting down. It was some crazy ass formula. It looked like friggin' hieroglyphics. I mean, which is why my mom took it and had it framed. I'm like, wow. But yeah, I mean, normal people like me, numbers ain't my thing. So I do believe that Michael himself was probably very bright. Her, I don't know about her, but I did hear them say towards the end that both Michael and Christine went to Purdue. So, I mean, clearly they're no dummies. So, Flo, I need to get my mom to send me a picture of it, because if you could see it, I'm not kidding you. It was like a paragraph size in length, and it was all just some kind of crazy ass formula that he invented for what, I don't know. And he thought it was hilarious that my mom would, like, it would have gone in the trash. He would have just picked that up and thrown it in the trash. So he was like, why would you get that framed? Because it's like insane that anybody does this for fun. It's Helen. I beg to differ, ma'am. You're not smart, but you got accepted at Columbia. Well, you can't be a dummy. Interestingly enough, my family member I just talked about also went to Columbia, and then did graduate work. Another really good school that I can't think of at the moment. Purdue is not Notre Dame. Purdue is not hard to get into. Well, maybe not hard for you, but I don't know. I don't think I would be accepted at Purdue. Maybe back when I was younger and I could remember shit. Oh, true crime, you and me. We're obviously from the same tribe. We call it the anything past 10 is the calculator tribe. Yeah, so we've got Michael, Christine, the 3 kids, one of whom is a genius, all of them homeschooled. Christine's got her business, and life is just wonderful. And Michael's words now, Christine and I thought, well, maybe we have room for another person in the family. Okay. I'll take him at his word that there was nothing more behind it than that absolutely is the truth. Okay, great. So hippie, that's very cool. Listen, you might not have heard, but a few minutes ago I said I do believe that probably some of the smartest people in the world do have Asperger's or some form of autism. I mean, to me, when I hear, and I realize that there is a spectrum, but when I hear Asperger's or even autism, all I really think is exactly what someone else in this chat put a ways back. They just use different parts of their brain, and they think and sometimes communicate differently than we do. So, oh, it's a mood. I do believe. Listen, I'm not woke. I've said this many times, but I think I finally got this concept down. It's a mood. Your comment, trying to get kudos for being great people. Girl, I do believe that is what we now refer to as virtue signaling. We just back in the day, what should we call that? Blowing your own horn kind of thing. So, cut to Michael and Christine get a phone call. Supposedly from this point I was not super clear on, and it was one of the things that made the radar go up. Supposedly in Michael's version, well, wait, before I get there, how many of you think, like I do, that at least in part, that there were quite a few things, little details left out of this background, etc., like Michael's employment? Why no mention of not his company necessarily, but what he does? Who put a 1 if you think there was a lot left out that might have been helpful to know? And if I had to guess, I would say it was probably at, well, I was going to say we'll just say at Michael and Christine's insistence. Okay, so I'm not the only one. Oh, and put a 1 in the chat if you are glad you watched it. I want to know, I never want to recommend anything to you guys that I don't really feel some certain way about. Like, I'm not going to ever tell you, oh my God, go watch this, if it was just like, whatever. So I'm just curious to know if y'all liked it, or if you were like, well, that was a big fat waste of time. Zen 11, we're talking about the docuseries called The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. It is on what is now just called Max, the app. And I thought it was an HBO series, but I'm now thinking that Discovery was the production company. So, oh, good. It's a mood. I'm glad. Oh, yes. Tay Kelly. I did see the other day that it had been on Dr. Phil. Was it on Dr. Phil recently, or did that come out before the docuseries? I'm just curious. Well, I guess the good news is, if you guys really hated it, well, you wouldn't have rolled through, what was there, six episodes? All right, so most of us think Hey, Mama Bear, how you doing? Most of us think that there was quite a bit left out. So for me, the very first red flag, I mean, we're literally minutes into this thing when Michael says, well, we got a phone call from someone who I think it was something like follows us online or saw us on. Oh, did he say that it was maybe from a group on Facebook? Oh, I think it had something to do with their daycare for special needs kids. Supposedly, according to Michael, they just get a phone call one day out of the clear blue sky. My goodness, what a coincidence that somebody rang them up right as they were thinking, maybe we have room for another member of the family. And that's exactly what happens. And it's an agency in Florida who says, hey, Chaos, how you doing? Oh, Sherlock Homie, welcome. And you were the other screen name I could not remember. In my personal Hall of Fame of some of the best screen names I've ever seen. So, Sherlock Homie, take your exalted position along with James Blonde 007 and Helen Highwater, one of whom is in this chat. So they get a phone call out of the blue from an agency in Florida that says, hi, would you be interested in adopting a 6-year-old girl from the Ukraine? Oh, and by the way, tick tock, you have 24 hours to give us an answer, or she's going into foster care. Now, with the understanding that we all think details have been left out, probably numerous details, how pertinent, who knows? But hey, Johnson, how you doing? Cutting grass, that reminds me, I saw a t-shirt that said, oh my God, I love this so much. I would braid grass before I would worry about why people don't like me. God, I thought that was so good. Hey, Dis-I-Am, how are you? So with the understanding that a lot of things have been left out, are you kidding me right now? You get a phone call from what you are supposed to believe is a licensed, reputable adoption agency, and in the span of 24 hours, because that's all you've got to make up your mind, in the span of 24 hours, oh, good Lord. Sorry about that. I silence my phone when I come in here, and I have no idea why my watch still rings. I'm sure it's something in the settings I don't know how to do. It's okay. Shut up. Kind of like Betty, I don't understand Apple. No, I do. In the span of 24 hours, even if we were to believe that this agency said, you got 24 hours to make up your mind. Now, the one and only situation where I could even remotely get on board with that logic, and even then, probably not, would be if it had been a situation like this. During the time we have called you, another family has reached out, and they are qualified, and they very much want to adopt this little girl. So, because we reached out to you first. This is going to sound horrific, and I don't mean it to, but I don't know a better term to use. Kind of like when you're selling a house or buying a house, the right of first refusal, kind of a situation. I have never adopted a child. I do, however, have a dear friend who did, and it was a private adoption, much like what this situation was, and came from a religious charity. The speed at which this all supposedly happened. So you've got 24 hours not only to answer us, you mean to tell me in the span of 24 hours, we got mom and dad both run through every kind of vetting that has got to be done in an adoption? I'm sorry. That sounds like a load of horse shit. I mean, I don't get it. And like I said, I totally am acknowledging that clearly things were left out. So I do not believe by any stretch of the imagination that that process happened in 24 hours. I don't believe it. How could it? I mean, I understand that they have a charitable foundation. So what's that? A 501c3? Is that what that's called? I think it is. God, isn't it interesting the numbers we deal with on here on YouTube? It's either a 501c3 or a 5150. I don't know if there's anything in the middle. Probably. Okay, True Crime Dime says takes 8 weeks. I would think it would take every bit of 8 weeks and maybe then some. I mean, they would have to, even though they've got this charitable foundation and they have the licensing for the special needs daycare, that's in Indiana. This child was in Florida. Why the hell does Florida always come into play? I'll tell you what, I don't give a damn what shit show you're talking about. Whether it's something like this, whether it's a murder, an arson, a kidnapping. I don't care what it is. Florida is always going to come into play. Oh God, Florida. We went from being the joke of the country, a la hanging chads. If you know, you know. If you're young, well, you probably won't be listening to me. What, you know what I mean when I say young? I mean really young, like my son's age. Yes, only the older folks will know what a hanging chad is. Hi, London girl, how you doing? Oh, Sherlock Holmes. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, Florida's always in there. So even though they're licensed, or she is licensed, I don't know that he's got anything to do with that daycare. So just because you are licensed and approved to deal with special needs children in a daycare setting in your home, this child's in Florida. And I don't believe that any of this happened that quickly. I just don't know how it could. I can tell you that when I went through we're just going to say a vetting process for some volunteer work, I had to be fingerprinted and background checked at the federal level. It was an FBI background check. And I mean, there were only certain places I could even go to have it done. So, and that was to do some volunteer work, okay? Not to adopt a child. So it's all sounding, within 5 minutes of this thing, I'm already sitting up and going, what the hell? Hey, Days, how you doing? Did anybody else come in that I missed? I apologize if you came in and I did not say. Okie Crime News, hello. Okay, I think I got everybody. So in 24 hours, like magic, Michael and Christine get on a plane and head to sunny Florida, where Michael says that he's kind of taken aback by the neighborhood that the agency is in. And of course, then they pan to an outside shot of whatever this agency was called. And it was a former house that's been turned into a business. Now, he went on about the looks of the place. Listen, I'm about the most bougie bitch there is. And it didn't set off alarm bells for me. I mean, they didn't show the whole surrounding neighborhood, but the actual house itself, it looked like exactly what he said it was. And in Florida, we have listen, where I get my hair done, which is tomorrow, thank God. That was a house. There's a lot of older, smaller homes around Florida that can be zoned business. And I mean, I'm not talking smack dab in the middle of a residential neighborhood, but when I saw the house, I wasn't all verklempt like Michael. However, and he goes on to say, I looked at Christine and said, put it in Google and check again. I don't think this is right. So quite naturally, you're a little uneasy and unsure about the outside of the building. So of course you're going to go in and sign on the dotted line and leave with your brand new child. I mean, idiot. Helen, I didn't think it looked bad either. Now, does anybody remember, was it Hollywood? I know they showed the sign that said welcome to Hollywood, Florida. Did they say, because I think it was probably Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood area. I will say this, in Michael's defense, there are definitely parts of that area that are rough. But that's anywhere. So in they go. And now we cut back to Jacob, who, I forgot this part. In the opening montage, after you see Jacob, he's in the newspaper. They show him doing a YouTube video, teaching his two younger brothers some kind of crazy ass math on a whiteboard. Do you think he knows unicorn? Sorry, I couldn't resist. You then see him in a really yucky space. Michael, I think you should have been more worried about the basement that your son's living in and what that looks like, and the fact that you would put that shit on a documentary. Like you wouldn't have just, I don't know, taken a paint roller and, I don't know, maybe some curtains. How about maybe even make the bed with a decent looking comforter or quilt? I mean, goodness, Michael. And as Jacob is sitting on that unmade bed in that basement nook, we'll call it, and that's charitable description. As he's sitting in that nook, that kind of looks like a prison cell block. He talks about how much they're so excited. He and his brothers, they just couldn't wait for Natalia to get there. They were writing little, kind of like Betty makes when she goes out to look for missing kids. You know, they get their glitter glue out and puff paint and welcome home. Or in Betty's case, thanks for providing me the ability to make a mortgage payment this month off of what I grift off of these losers on YouTube who give me money. Hey, Fuchsia Flower, how you doing? It's a mood. I agree. How big do y'all think that house was? Mrs. Comment says the basement bothered me in relation to the size of the house. What? I mean, and I do know because I have family that lives up north, and I do know that not everybody finishes the entire basement, but I agree. London girl, trust me, Lisa holds back. Lisa tries, Lisa very carefully chooses her words. At least I try to. If you guys think I'm fun here, you should see me at happy hour. Not that I've been to happy hour in about 1,000 years, but how big do we think that house was? Square footage wise. He said 5,000. So do we split the difference? Do we say it's probably actual living space above the basement? Do we think 2,500 square feet maybe? And then you got, do you have the same amount of square footage on the bottom then? Like if your house proper is 2,500, do you then have 2,500 in the basement? Missa like kills. Yeah, I mean, we have to use that here in Florida when you paint because, you'll get the humidity and whatnot. You can get mold. Helen, you think it was only 1,500? Or are you talking about the basement or the house proper? Whatever it was, I agree. Like, why is this kid in this little tiny corner that, honest to God, it looked like a fucking prison cell block? I've seen, convicts who have more interior design sense. My God, I mean, let me tell you something. Don't ever doubt for 1 minute that Kool-Aid has about 1,000 off-label uses. You know how when a doctor prescribes a drug, a lot of times doctors prescribe different drugs. They treat what they call off-label. So not necessarily, what it was made and marketed for. So, Kool-Aid is made for drinking. Or if you're Lori Vallow, it's prison Sephora. Gotta use what you got. And, who knows, maybe you use it for like an accent wall in your prison basement. I don't know. It was very obvious to me. Well, let's just say this. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say that Jacob is his father's son. That's what I'm gonna say. So yeah, it as they're anxiously awaiting their new little treasure, the kids are at home making, welcome signs. And Michael says, this was another thing I was like, so effing weird. Okay. If you're like me, and we're all in this true crime trauma swamp because we like true crime, just not necessarily the criminals or the YouTube creators who are both criminal and creator. Little detail things that in and of themselves are nothing of note or devious, but when, to me, little things mean a lot. Who said that? I think it was some who was that? Who said that? It was the tagline for somebody. So Michael talks about, because quite naturally, I mean, I know if I'm looking for a store and I look in the window and I see a bunch of like cheap ass polyester stripper looking clothes, well, of course, that's where I'm going to go in and, look for something to wear to a black tie event. So much in that vein, Michael, who's creeped out or bothered, whatever he said, by the looks of the place, well, of course you're going to go in there and adopt a kid. Why wouldn't you? And as he and Christine are sitting there waiting for their new bundle of joy, who's 6, he made this point more than once. There was a keyhole, and we kept looking through that keyhole in the door. Yeah, there was keyholes in the door. And I can tell you this from being a Florida native and knowing those types of houses. That didn't look to me like a home that is of the age where there would still be keyholes. And I lived in a very old home at one time, which I love and I miss. It was early 1900s. Oh, let me tell you something. They don't make them like they used to, and that is so true. When I wanted to hang a picture in that place, you had to drill into the walls. There was no drywall in that house. I had baseboards that were this high, fireplace, hardwood floors, and I had doorknobs that were original. And they had the keyhole that Michael's referring to. So the structure of that, even if it's been completely updated outside, that house did not look to me to be of an age that would have that type of hardware. But whatever. Am I the only one? Put a 1 in the chat if you... Oh, Fuchsia Flower agrees. You think 60s, 70s? I could go with that. Crazy Nurse, I did have the crystal doorknobs. And I actually dropped one and broke it. And had to replace that one with acrylic. I miss that house. And it was a tiny house. It was not a big house at all, but I loved that house. I miss it. So just put a 1 in the chat if that keyhole thing, if you picked up on that and also thought it was a little odd, because he made such a point of the other family. Oh yes, let's not forget that. Helen, yes. And the plate, what do you call that? You've got the knob, but then it was a very tall rectangular, like a plate where the doorknob went through, and it was some type of metal. So, hi Marbella, how are you? I think somebody else came in I wanted to say hello to. Oh, I think it was Fuchsia. Okay. All right, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one who picked up on the keyhole thing. So Michael and Christine, they're in the office with the door closed, and Natalia, their new daughter, is apparently being brought to the agency accompanied by her previous adopted family. And okay, here's what I'm going to say about that. Oh my God, I totally neglected to say that when they reached out to Christine and Michael, Natalia has a form of dwarfism called, it's something plasia. I don't think it doesn't. I don't want to waste the time looking it up, but okay, so she's got a specific type of dwarfism, and she's from the Ukraine. And whether this makes me sound like a terrible person or not, oh well, I'm just going to come right on out and say, the minute I heard that she was from the Ukraine, that also made me go, oh, this could end badly. Hey, Running Bear, how you doing? Kiko, how are you? Oh, good. You liked it? M Faithful, how you doing? I mean, if you were in, oh, well, I was going to say, if you were in the market to want to add to your family an adopted child, but Michael and Christine, this call just came out of the blue. But maybe it's because I've watched too many documentaries and seen too many news stories. But and listen, obviously, I am coming at this from a place of I have never adopted a child, and I never had a problem getting pregnant and having my own. So I absolutely cannot fully appreciate or understand at any length the desire that many women and families have, not being able to have a child and desperately wanting one. So with that being said, I mean, this isn't like buying a car or adopting an animal. It's a done deal. Once you adopt this child, this is your child, and you're responsible for this child, for better or worse. Unless you're these people, of course. So I do not know that I would be, well, I can say this. I would not, in the span of 24 hours, ever commit to adopting a child from a foreign country where it's been problematic in the past. That's all I'll say about that. And what I mainly mean when I say that is we all know that sadly many children in countries like Ukraine and other Eastern European countries, these poor kids are like warehoused in just orphanages. They don't, a lot of, I mean, there's been many cases of kids being adopted from these countries, and they've got attachment disorder because how would they not? They don't get the love, the the attention, physical and emotional, that babies need. So it boggles the mind to think that they would, well, and I don't believe it was 24 hours. Oh, crazy nurse. You had a patient adopted from there? Yeah, I mean, listen, if I know about it, and I've never been in any position or desire to adopt a kid. So you certainly, if you were wanting to adopt, you would have to know that oftentimes it's not good through no fault of their own. These kids can be very troubled because they don't get what they need when they're babies and they're just warehoused. So I'm just looking at the chat for a minute. Oh, here's a good point. The one thing they did not mention is some people who have certain conditions or diseases mature more quickly than others. I hadn't even thought of that. So they're sitting in this room. This child is being, I mean, rehomed is, well, I probably shouldn't use that term, but we'll just say she is being surrendered back to the agency. And I just can't imagine what was driving these people to do this. Because for people who are clearly very bright in some areas, they were just duh. But be that as it may, they leave with their new daughter, Natalia. And were the kids, you know, it just occurred to me because I remembered that they said they spent the week in Disney. So the kids obviously came with them. See, I thought the kids were there. They just, obviously they were with a sitter or something, or I don't know. How old was the oldest one? He might have been at the time. I guess he would have been old enough to stay in a hotel with the other two. So they get Natalia, who is supposedly 6 years old, and she's got this form of dwarfism. And they show a nice picture of the front of Disney when you're driving through the main gates to the parking lot of the Magic Kingdom. And the next thing Michael talks about is, fuchsia flower. I think she had what is called precocious puberty. I had a previous coworker that had to take her 7-year-old daughter to a specialist for it. That's very interesting. I've never heard of that. So we're at the hotel, and I'm assuming the kids are, they're crazy about their new sister. And Christine takes Natalia into the bathroom. Hi, my husband just walked in. I texted him before I came in the office, and I said, FYI, I just got out of hair and makeup, and I'm going to do a show. So if you come home, Oh, I can't believe my dog didn't bark, you guys. I have a little dog. He's like 13. I love him so much. And he's definitely starting to go blind, and he doesn't hear very good anymore. It makes me so sad. I know you guys have probably heard him many times when I'm in this room, because he's a little dog. He's a Bichon, and they're yappers, but he didn't even bark when my husband came in. Yeah, I don't think he heard him. So the day's over, I guess, and Christine goes to take Natalia in the bathroom to give her a bath. And Michael says, next thing I know, I hear Christine, and she's screaming, Michael! Oh, thank you, crazy nurse. Michael, come here. Like, fire, it's an emergency. Oh, fuchsia. Yeah, I can see the eyes are getting real cloudy. My husband said he ran into him the other day. It's so sad. Y'all, I can't talk about it. My damn eyelashes will float right off my face. And I'm an old bat who wears too much makeup anyway, so God, I can't have that added issue. Oh, if you haven't checked out my community post, oh, please do. I think you'll like it. Hey, Revival, how you doing? So Michael goes into the bathroom, and what does he see? Okay, I can tell you, if that was my husband, he would have opened the door a crack and he would have said, honey, what? Because my husband would not want to. I mean, this child has been with them like not even 24 hours. Am I the only one who thinks it's a little strange that he went busting right in that door and that she wanted him to? I think that's gross. I promise you, if that had been my family, this is the way that would have been handled. Never mind the fact that if it happened, like he's saying it happened, and Christine is in the bathroom screaming about, oh my God, Michael, come here. And he comes, bursting through the door to look at his daughter of less than 24 hours. Completely nude. For Christine to say, oh my God, look. I forget how she put it, but it was only slightly more delicate than what I just said. Hey, Kiko, how you doing? How it should have gone is we get Natalia out of her bath and all dried off, and in her, hopefully they bought her some sweet Disney pajamas when they were at the happiest place on earth. Which, by the way, did I ever tell y'all that I thought about writing a book called There's No Happy Kids at Disney? You know why I say that? Because, when you live in Florida, you quite naturally go to Disney when you have kids. Well, hell, a lot of people go in when they don't have kids. But I found myself at Disney pretty much my entire life. And, well, believe it or not, it's hot as the hinges of hell. And long before we had Fast Pass and all that nonsense, well, no, not nonsense, it's a godsend. But before we had all that, what you had was a whole hell of a lot of kids in line, melting, needing a nap, not only melting from the heat, but melting down because they're overloaded, sensory overload and exhaustion, and everybody's crying and whining. So I said, I am going to write a damn book called There's No Happy Kids at Disney. So sorry for the detour. I'm just doing PR for my as yet to be written book. But So Christine should have wrapped up the bath. She should have put her in her pajamas, put all the kids to bed, or waited until all the kids were to bed. And then she sits down with Michael and says, you're not going to believe this. She's got pubic hair. But that's not what they did. No, what did they do? Christine thought it was appropriate, and apparently Michael thought it was appropriate as well, to come bursting through the door. Supposedly, the way they tell this story, this was the night they got her. I don't care if it was a week after they got her. It doesn't matter. It makes it all the worse that it was within that 24 hours. And he thought it, either one of those idiots thought it was appropriate to basically, I mean, my God, you're basically telling that child that number one, bye, I love you. We're telling this child, in essence, oh my God, something's wrong with you. I mean, honest to God, that was so cruel what they did to this kid. And it's creepy and it's not appropriate. And I can tell you right now, there is no circumstance in this world where my husband would have done what Michael did. No effing way. And if I was persisting in screaming in the bathroom for him to come here, Michael, come here, the door would have opened big enough to make sure he was being heard. And it would have been, honey, you go ahead and wrap this up. And whatever it is, unless I need to call an ambulance right now, we'll discuss this when the kids go to bed. I mean, that's what a normal person does. What they don't do is what they did. I mean, that's sick. Not only for the absolute lack of privacy they afforded that child, but they basically, I mean, she had to have felt like some kind of, like they were looking at her like she was a freak. Well, isn't that the message that quite naturally you want to give to your newly adopted daughter of less than 24 hours? Of course. I mean, it's just so gross. I mean, this guy, and I tell you what, if you're listening, and you have not watched all of it, or even if you have, but you're hearing things that you didn't either pick up on or you didn't see them in the same way as I did, I would really recommend, if you might have to do one of these to do it, but I highly recommend going back and watching it again, because like I said, I watched most of it twice. And there were so many things that from the beginning are red flags are just flying up everywhere. And I also say that in complete understanding and recognition that clearly details were left out, and we don't have, I think there's a hell of a lot that happened in between here and here that wasn't even in the documentary. So, so that's what they do. And the happiest trip in the world obviously ends, and they're back in Indiana. And then we cut to, if I'm remembering correctly, we cut to the neighbor. Oh my. The neighbor who is quite literally as big as a house, I would say. And listen, she seemed like Well, I was going to lie and say she seems like a perfectly lovely woman. No, she didn't. She seemed like a busybody bitch. Nut job. I wouldn't want her to be my neighbor. Let's just say that. And one of the biggest laughs for me of this thing was when we first meet the neighbor. I don't know this bitch's name. And they film her. You know how they call it the outtakes or the B-roll? Not outtakes, B-roll. B-roll is like the just kind of generic scenes that they film to segue from one scene to the next. Well, and there may have been another one that I'm not thinking about, but in my mind, I think we segued from Disney to Mrs. Kravitz. That's what we'll call her. Oh goodness, Missa and Kiko think she's Mrs. Kravitz. Okay, I'll go with that. We see her. Well, sorry, I got to do fashion police on her first. She's as big as a house. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean, but she is. She's huge. How big do we think this woman is? I'm thinking 400 pounds. Every bit of 350. And listen, she is large and in charge. She's, well, I'm trying to gauge how wide I think she was. She was one of these fat people who, I'm going to give her this. I think her fat was nicely, her weight was nicely distributed. She truly was proportionate, I guess we'll say. She was wide as hell. She was huge. Man, Miss Kravitz. You're, just for future note, my goodness, especially should you find yourself starring in a documentary, looking like a walrus wearing a picnic basket dress is not, no, that's not your, it was patriotic. I'll give her that. It was red, white. Was it red, white, and blue, or is it just red and white? I think it was red, white, and blue. Plaid. Just as a general note, whether you're 400 pounds or 100 pounds, I mean, my goodness, some things you just stay away from. Plaids when you're obese, no, probably not your best pick. Black is very nice. But plaid, flags, style, no. And I mean, even I would not, my God, I wouldn't dream of wearing horizontal stripes. And I'm not overweight. So just trust me on this. Some things just are not flattering. And a picnic basket, picnic style tablecloth looking tent or tarp, no. But where I got the laugh, hi Mike Stevens, how are you? Hey Queen Bee, how you doing? Where I got the laugh was they film her walking up and down, and I'm thinking, oh hell no, she does not walk her ass up and down these streets. No, I'm pretty sure she probably used a scooter when she goes to the grocery store. And listen, I'm being funny, okay? But she was like, she annoyed me too. I'm not a fan of her. So we cut to her. Oh, and of course, they film her pulling like, 24 cookies out of her oven. What is that about? So she talks about her little girl played with Natalia. And at first she was fine with this. How did she put it? Yeah, if I was a kid who was going to be put up for adoption, you would definitely think they looked real good. You could just tell that this woman was, yes, the Mrs. Kravitz. She was the neighborhood busybody. So she's just talking a little bit about, her little girl. At some point in this first episode, oh, well, wait, let me back up a minute. I'm just curious because I've asked myself this. How would I have handled? Well, I mean, obviously, we've gone over how I wouldn't handle the bathroom situation. But why did they not? I mean, it had been, if the documentary is to be believed, oh, Queen Bee, I hope you're feeling better. If the documentary is to be believed, we're not even 24 hours into this. And they are questioning, how could she be 6? So they didn't mention this in the documentary, but if it's me, I am going to immediately, even if we didn't have that situation, I am still going to immediately take her to my family pediatrician and just have a complete physical to make sure there's nothing that she doesn't need medically. So why did they not do that? And say to the doctor, listen, because Michael said, well, I immediately Googled. And he found that 8 is the earliest that a child could have pubic hair. Oh, yes, Stella, she did say that. Oh, well, thank you, Brittany. I don't get it. There was no mention of that. There's no mention of a physician until we get a little further in. So the next thing that I remember, and we're still in the first episode, you guys. But the next thing that I remember, Michael starts talking about some problematic things that are beginning to happen. Put a 1 in the chat if you believe their assertions, which include Natalia would take his other children, she would take their favorite toys and make sure that she, dropped them on the ground. Oh, here's something he said. Well, first, and I may have the order wrong, but this all happened in this scene, I believe, or this first episode. So he says that Natalia, when everybody gets in the car, she will try to, I know he said, did he say urinate? She would try to urinate on my other son sitting next to her. Huh? What the hell does that mean? How do you, like, what did she do? Did she go in a cup like a urine specimen and throw it on him? What the hell does that mean? And then he went on to say that she tried to defecate on him. Now that one seems like it might be a little easier to accomplish, because I guess you could just, you know where I'm going with that. I mean, just logistically, that would seem a little more doable than the other option. He also said that he would get it, she would get, everybody would get in the car. She'd be, I guess, in her seatbelt or whatever. I don't know. I never heard that she was in a booster seat or a car seat, but he said as soon as he would get into his seat and put his seatbelt on and get ready to put the car in gear, she would pop out of the car, get out of the car, and fall down on the ground. So people would look at her walking by and say, oh my gosh, look at the poor little girl. I was like, what in the hell is he talking about? And not for nothing, wait, he did say what kind of car they were in. And it was a Jeep. It was some kind of a Jeep Cherokee. I do not know if that would have had the push button. No, those have standard, because that's not a van. Those would have been standard doors, if I'm not mistaken. He definitely made a point of saying it had 3 rows of seats. How did she manage to do that? From the time that the door shut until he opens his door, sits down, puts the seatbelt on, gets ready to pull the car in gear. And you're telling me she was able to open that door on her own, get out. They did film her as he was relaying this. They did have a video of her getting out of the car, but that's it. You didn't see her opening the door, and you did not see her throwing herself on the ground. You saw her kind of jump down. And I mean, hey, let's face it. I've told you guys this before. You've only ever seen me in very high heels. I am 4'11". I'm very short. Believe me when I tell you, it is absolutely happens at least 50% of the time. When I go to a restaurant, if it's a booth, my feet don't reach the floor. Like I'm like a little kid with my feet dangling, unless I have, 5-6 inch heels on. And I have trouble getting in and out of, not trouble, but like my sister-in-law drives a huge pickup truck and it's lifted and it's got all this shit on it. I have to use the running board, and I have to be careful getting in and out of there. And I'm much taller than Natalia, but I'm very short. Okay, a Jeep Commander. I knew it was some kind of Jeep. Oh, good. I'm glad you're feeling better, Queen Bee. What's a negative CETA? Oh, it's funny. I'm positive that my husband and I both had the C word illness before it was even, like, before we knew it was here and what it was. And the main reason I'm pretty sure that's what I had when I look back on it is because it hung on for like 3 weeks, and I am very rarely sick. Once every couple of years, knock wood, I get sick like that. And it just so happened to be that my doctor, when I finally broke down and went, because like I said, it'd been like 3 weeks and it was not getting better. the cough. It was terrible. And she said, I'm going to give you what they now use as the cocktail for that. So it was a steroid, some kind of antibiotic. I can't remember what it's called. But basically, she gave me a very close version of what they give to treat it now. And it went away like that. But she had said to me, you're going to come back in a week. And if I still hear that crackling in your lungs, you're going to have a chest x-ray. But whatever she gave me cleared it right up. So, Brittany, yes, ma'am. I will second that emotion, which is this whole family is weird as fuck. Well, you said it first. So like I said, I'm just going to second that emotion. So yes, as soon as I saw that little girl getting out of that car, I'm thinking to myself, bullshit. I mean, it was so obvious that it had been edited to work in his favor, because how did she get the door open? Now, I'm not saying she couldn't have gotten the door open, but not in the time frame he's explaining, which was I shut the door to the back, open the door to mine, sit in the seat, put the seatbelt on, go to put the car in gear. And in that amount of time, she has, well, I mean, if you believe Michael, she has urinated and defecated on the kid in the back and managed to get out, do a front walkover, back bend on a balance beam, and throw herself down on the sidewalk. And no, I'm just being funny. I know he wasn't saying that she did all that at the same time, but I mean, it's all so absurd. We may as well just say it was all at the same time. So all we saw was a girl getting out of the car. And I might say, oh my God, she did it a little more gracefully than I've been known to get out of a pickup truck. Oh, I actually used to drive a Hummer, fun fact. I had the 2 and I wanted the 1. I really did. There's still a part of me that wants one. There's somebody around my neighborhood that has one, and every time I see it, I'm like, ooh, God, I love that. And when I had the 2, oh, it was wonderful. You know, like when you're in the turn lane and there's this huge line and you're like, well, shit, I'm going to be sitting here for who knows how many rotations of this light. Oh my God, I would just like drive on the grass median. Remind me to tell you one time about one of the funniest stories from when my son was a kid. This is hilarious. And it involved that car. So all we saw in this video was her getting out of the car, or no, she was already out of the car. She was not throwing herself on the ground, and we did not see her open the door. So I'm already calling bullshit on a lot of that. Another thing he said, and I really paid attention to his phrasing because I was like, what you talking about, Willis? That only the old people will know that one too. Oh God. Sorry, sciatic nerve is setting in. Another thing he said, Natalia, before we got to the real heavy accusations, like where knives are involved, he said that, oh, and another thing she'd do, she would take the boys, the younger ones, or actually they were all older than her, I believe. Brittany, yes, send it to crimesandfashion@gmail.com. I need to put that on my about page. Ouch. One of the other things he says is Natalia would take the boys, and I'm presuming he meant the younger ones. Although I don't know, maybe Jacob he's a bit of an odd duck too. So, I mean, he could have had little toys even at his age. I think they showed a Matchbox car. And he actually said, Matchbox cars. Oh, God. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Oh, God. Jesus. Oh, God. When this happens, like oh, God. Anybody who has sciatic nerve issues, you know what I'm talking about. It's like being, it's like electric shock. It hurts so bad. Mine goes through my hip and my thigh. Oh, so I have to stand up. Hey, Monroe. Oh, Monroe, are you under is that your alt? Oh, it's a mood. I wanted to whip his ass, but I hated him so much. I was hoping that he was going to get the death penalty. But they show a scene with, and it's not their kids, but they're just little actors. So they had a lovely park across the street from their house, their McMansion, as they called it. And they show 3 kids and Natalia, or actors portraying. And one of them has a little Matchbox car. And he said that she would find their toys that they really liked, and then she would try and damage the toy in front of them. But that's not what was of note. What was of note is that he said there was this one time where they were going to the park across the street, and she purposely, bye, crazy nurse, have a good day, thanks for coming by, said that she purposely took that toy and dropped it in the road. And he said, because she wanted to see them walk into traffic and get hurt. I was like, what? I mean, it's pretty clear to me. Early on, it was clear. Before they even got to the good part of the story. Remind me of something. Remind me to tell you, do not let me forget to tell you who my favorite person in this whole damn thing was. I think that they really had a very strong dislike for this child. And listen, I don't doubt that she was troubled. I think she was. Well, can you imagine? I mean, she'd already been basically returned. I mean, my goodness, this adoption agency has a more liberal return policy than Walmart, apparently. That reminds me. Y'all want to hear the funniest Walmart story I have? Because I was going to say time is tick-tocking. One time I had to return something to Walmart. Yes, even Lisa goes to Walmart. I'm not saying I love going there, but my mom does. How funny is that? And listen, the bougie apple doesn't fall far from the bougie tree. So for my mom to like to go to Walmart, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You like going there? So I'm in line, and there's a guy in front of me with his wife, and they have a stack of books. I swear to God, it was like this. It must have been 20 books. All very clearly, well, let's just say that, my goodness, they were, by the looks of things, they were very strong advocates for literacy. And they were trying to return all those used books. And the cashier was like, well, were they like this when you bought them? And me being the smart ass I am, and I'm annoyed because the line's long, these people are running some kind of freaking scam. And I just remember I piped up and said, what do you think this is, a library? But they did take them back. And yes, Walmart will take anything back. Don't let me forget, before we end this, to tell you my favorite person. I just think very early on, they bit off more than they could chew. I think she was troubled. Do I believe all the shit they said? No. But as we're gonna get into this more, because I mean, listen, we're still on episode 1, folks. We're obviously we're gonna have to meet again a few more times. I kind of like this. It's good. I get to use my snark skills, and not just talking about the friggin' tragedy pimps. And the good news is the world has no shortage of assholes to bust on. They just don't all have the really bad judgment and sense to make a docuseries to put their idiocy on display for the whole world to then talk about. But I just think that none of this is making sense from episode 1. I mean, right out of the gate. I don't know why the what's that thing? The keyhole. I don't know why that keyhole detail bothers me so much. And I think it's because even though it seems like just a meaningless detail, if that was, and they said that building they showed, that house, that was the actual adoption agency. Well, I'm here to tell you that architecture just doesn't jive with what I'm thinking of, the hardware and doorknobs that would have a keyhole. And it doesn't matter, but it just, I don't know. To me, these people have little to no credibility. But tell me I want to know if you had a favorite person in this whole shit show, who it was. I can tell you hands down who mine was. Sue, the neighbor from the first place that is not Michael and Christine's. I loved her. I looked at my husband. I said, oh my God, she's telling the truth. She is the one person in this thing that I think I believe most of what she's saying. So Hulu, it was on Hulu as well. Oh, I watched it on what I thought was HBO, but it was Max, which now has merged with Discovery Plus, I believe. Hey, Sue. Yeah, Sue, rewind it. I think you'll get a laugh out of it, if nothing else. What about the pediatrician? It's, that's another thing that I kept saying to myself through this whole thing, but especially in the beginning. Why was there no talk of a pediatrician until much later on in the series? Because I would not have left the state. Well, I guess the state of Florida, you wouldn't have had your own pediatrician that you would have. I was going to say I wouldn't have left the state of Florida. without having her. Yes, Kiko. But that bothered me through this whole thing because let me look at the time here. All right, I've got a little bit of time left. I'm just trying to think where. All right, so we've had the accusations about the car. We've had the accusations about the toys. And supposedly Natalia taking the toys and dropping them in the road with the express intent that the kids get hit by a car and hurt. Not sure how he'd know that, but okay. And then we get to supposedly the next thing that comes along is they wake up. Michael wakes up one night and there's Natalia standing there staring at him with a knife. And he says, and the way he says this, go back and watch it. It's weird. His affect to me does not match. He was just as Michael's very dramatic. I mean, like I said, I knew within minutes. Well, I thought within minutes. I wonder if his wife knows he's gay. Goodness, Michael, if you're out there, you should start a YouTube channel because my God, we've got a couple of men rolling around here that, my goodness, I thought they had a flair for the dramatic, but you've got them all beat. So Michael, good Lord, you could thrive in this environment. But his whole affect and his tone, I'm like a flamingo standing here. I've got one leg down and I'm trying to stretch out that sciatic. He just had a very conversational tone, just like this. Yeah, I woke up and she's just staring at me. And then she's got a knife. No, and at some point, if memory serves me correctly, they go to the doctor immediately. A shrink, I think. I do believe did they call? No, wait a minute. If I'm not mistaken, towards the end, yes, Aunt Carter, happy Pride, Michael. I am such a fan of rainbows, you guys. I love this month because you've got all the awesome rainbow stuff. Oh, the other day, not too far from my house, I was coming home and I looked and there was the most gorgeous rainbow. And what was crazy is it was pretty clear. The sky in front of me, it was nice and blue, fairly clear. And when I first saw the rainbow, I looked to the left. So half of a rainbow and it was super vibrant. It was gorgeous. And then from the middle to the end of the rainbow, it just was lighter and lighter and lighter. And, it was more cloudy, but God, it was so gorgeous. And I haven't seen a rainbow in, it's been a while. So yes, happy Pride to everyone. And you too, Michael. Oh, Sue, that's where I have it. It's, oh God. Sometimes I get it on the right, but not too often. It's always the left. If I'm not mistaken though, basically, before this episode is over, Michael very much wants you to think that, and the way he's presented, I guess I would be afraid if everything he's saying is true, which I'm certainly not saying it is, because we've already talked about many, many, many red flags here. But at some point, Christine is trying to discipline her over something. And she is so exasperated that, I guess because, well, I think they said they found a knife in her room. Michael says at some point he has spoken to a professional who tells him that, I guess after evaluating Natalia, that I'm expecting the doctor to say something like she's got schizophrenia or she hears voices. We were prepared for that. But what we weren't prepared for was the professionals told us, you cannot help her. And not only can she not be helped, you and your entire family are in danger. And basically, you cannot, he said, she cannot go throughout your house unaccompanied. And he said something, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, but basically, when we couldn't supervise her, we had to put a lock on her door from the outside. And except when she needed to shower, he didn't say food, he said something odd like nutrients or something. It was bizarre because anybody else would have said meals or when she needs to eat. But he first said something like, she came out and had to be escorted to the shower, bathroom, and when she needed nutrition, if I'm not mistaken, that's some kind of bizarre verbiage he used, which always sets off alarm bells for me because that's not how normal people talk. And that's not how he's talked through most of this. So why did he not just say when it was time to eat or when it was mealtime? When she needed nutrition or some bullshit? It was weird. But yeah, you're in danger. Your whole family's in danger. You cannot allow her to be unsupervised at any time in your home. And I guess at some point, Christine becomes so exasperated. Oh, wait, before I forget, I got a little bit ahead of myself. At some point after we get home from Disney and, you know, the issues, the bad behavior starts, well, at some point we have another revelation. And you see this little girl, and I'm sorry, her face to me looks like a little girl. And I may be encompassing some of 1 and 2 in here. I'm not sure, but I will go back and I want to look at a couple things before we meet again. There's a video of this little girl and Christine in the background is saying, Michael says, I just come home from work and we've got another problem. And you see this little girl and Christine is saying, Natalia, do you have something to tell Daddy? Or something along those lines. Yeah. And either Michael or Christine, somebody says, yeah, we have another problem. And what you tell him, what do you want to tell him? I have a period. I mean, I don't know if she did or not, but whether she did or not, these two are fucking sadistic monsters. That is so sick. How could, I mean, it is clear to me, no matter what the truth is, whether it is absolutely the gospel, like they are saying it, which I don't believe it is, but even if it was, that is so cruel. It was meant to demean her. So, Michael, what a normal person would do who's not a fucking monster and looking to shame a child who, let's keep in mind the age, okay? And at that point, I don't know, she might have turned 7, I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. Oh, and at various points through here, some B-roll, we meet Michael's mother, who, I mean, I know this has kind of come as a huge shock, but my goodness, his mommy seems to be, that's her baby boy. You could just tell there's probably an unhealthy. I definitely got the impression that she's one of those mothers that, like, you could show her a video of her Michael, her baby, doing something terrible, and she would deny that it was either him, or if it was him, that he was doing anything wrong. She's that type. And we meet his sister. His sister is the one who talks about the period thing. And what the sister says is, well, yeah, you know how we found out was, and this is so sad. She said, yeah, apparently she was using socks. Christine found some socks that she had used that she put in her underwear, and there was blood on them. And she threw them out the window, and they were in the yard. I mean, how sad is that? I mean, clearly she did that for a reason. Now, I understand not everybody's going to agree on the reason that she was hiding the socks. But we're in the first episode, so we don't know anything different than she's 6 or 7 at the time this goes on. Hold on, baby. Hold on 1 minute. So whatever the reason is that the child threw them out the window, and I mean, I know why, I think. But at that point in time, as far as they know, she is 6 or 7. So not quite naturally, what do? You make the kid make a video. Well, actually, you make the child tell daddy when he comes home from work, I have a period. I don't know. She said something else. I don't know how. I think that's what she said. And quite naturally, being the wonderful mother that Christine is, well, she stands there and films it. How humiliating. It's just vile. It's no matter what. No matter if you've watched all of this, no matter what your feelings are about, let's just say, where we are in the story at this point in time. We know where they say they are at this point in time. And at this point in time, this child is 6 or 7 years old. And no one knows anything different. So That's how they chose to, the child that obviously had a very rough start in life, who has just been relinquished from the last family, who is now plopped down in Indiana with this family. And someone finds the socks that she was using. She threw them out the window. Now, here's what I'm going to say without giving, in case anybody is listening to this that hasn't seen it all, and doesn't know, how this is going to unfold. Does not the fact that, well, let's just say this. Do you agree with me that only someone with a very juvenile, young person's naivete or outlook, let's just say, would think that throwing bloody socks out of an upstairs window onto the grass below, I mean, would you agree with me that you would have to be, that is a child's mentality, that would kind of like out of sight, out of mind. I mean, would you agree? Because, I mean, if I'm trying to hide something and I'm an adult, I'm not going to assume that just because I don't throw something in the garbage can where mom and dad can see it, that throwing it out the window into the grass is going to make the problem go away, is what I'm getting at. Y'all, I'm trying to describe, I'm trying to give my thoughts on this without getting too far. I'm trying to stay in the timeline that we watched this, okay? So that's why I'm saying things the way I'm saying them. And here's where I think where we're gonna end. After that event, there's a lot of turmoil going on in the house. And at some point, Christine is at the end of her rope, at her wit's end, incredibly frustrated. And she's so angry that Natalia is not complying with something that she's asked. Probably all of these events taken together, I don't know if it was one small thing that set her off or she was just at the end of her tether. I mean, who knows? But she decided that, well, you don't want to do what I'm asking you. You don't want to live by the family rules. It was something about her bedroom. She didn't want to stay in her bedroom or something. So she said, okay, well then guess what? You can't sleep in the house. And I guess her pillow and blanket went outside and she locked her out on the back deck. My goodness, wouldn't you want her for your mom? And this event marks the first time that CPS and the law get involved in this story. And I think that is a perfect place to put a period. Oh God, no pun intended. Actually, we should probably put an exclamation mark. Or we should put an ellipsis, ... because we are going to continue. Probably just not today. So there you have it. I am going to go back and I want to watch like the last part of episode 2 because I'm not sure if everything we've talked about has only occurred. I don't know if I veered into episode 2 territory. I may have, but I'm going to go back and watch, and then I'm going to just skim maybe the next 2 episodes. I just want to make a couple notes to myself because I did all this off the cuff. I didn't even look before I came in here. Let me just look at. Thank you, Hippie. You too. Stargazer, have you watched it? I'm just trying to do it in a linear, the way it was laid out in the documentary. So I have seen several different comments by different people that it's not that they don't make perfect sense, but if I comment on them, I'm going to be getting ahead of myself. So, all right. What's today? Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow I have a hair appointment at 11. I doubt. Let me think about it. Well, let's put it this. No, I don't think that's going to give me enough. We will either reconvene tomorrow at the end of the day, but that's probably not going to happen. I would say Thursday. Let me just look real quick. I think Thursday I'm wide open. I don't think I have anything at all going on. That way I have plenty of time. Yeah, I say let's do Thursday because that way I have plenty of time to make some notes and go back and look at a couple things. So we'll say Thursday. It will probably be around the same time. I kind of like this morning, late morning situation. And we'll go through a couple more. And I think what I really would love to do, how about we do this? Once we finish going through it, then we're going to do an open, then I'll open the panel and that'll be fun. And then you guys come, and if you want to come up, and especially if you have a different, thought process on it, I would love to hear that. So let's do that. I think that'll be great. We'll go through, see, there were 6 episodes. I mean, maybe by the weekend we could do the panel because I'll be all done checking my jaw about it. Oh, if you guys want something else really good to watch, that I've watched 4 episodes now and I still have no clue what the hell's going on. I'm like, which is kind of why I keep watching it, because that's pretty rare that happens for me, that I'm, that deep into something and not like, what the hell's going on? It is also on Hulu, and it's called, I'm going to put it in the chat. It's called The Clearing. It's a hey, Liza. That's all right. Come back on Thursday. We're going to pick up again on Thursday, and we've maybe gotten a little bit into episode 2, but so if you can catch the first, like maybe 3 by Thursday, you'll know you'll know everything we're talking about. But yes, check out The Clearing. That's really good. And I'm still working on my list. It's funny. It's going to be funny. All right, everybody. I hope everybody has a great day. And I don't know. Google that, because I want to say well, if you know about torrents, then I would say yes, you can probably absolutely find it free. Oh, Kiko, good. You know what? I'm gonna skim. I did watch it twice, up to episode 4. I'm gonna watch 5 and 6 again, and I'm gonna skim 2.5 to 3. So, oh, Missa, I told you. Is it not wild? I mean, that's when I said you could not write this shit. You could not make this up. Truth is almost always stranger than fiction. And with this story, I think it's truth and fiction. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. This was a lot of fun. So, we will reconvene on Thursday and pick up where we're leaving off. All right, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and I'll be seeing you out here before Thursday. All right, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.